Hello and welcome to this month's episode of My Cyber Why. This is a web series where we celebrate all the people in cybersecurity that are doing what they can to help keep us safe and secure online. And today's guest, very happy to welcome Yolonda Smith, who is the head of cybersecurity at Sweetgreen, one of my favorite places to eat. So welcome, Yolonda.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here.
Thanks so much for being with us. So to get started, as you know, we have 4 questions. And the first question is who you are.
My name is Yolonda Smith, and I'm passionate about making sure that we build a resilient, reliable, equitable, accessible internet for everybody, no matter where you are, where you come from, how much money you have, what color your skin is, that this is all for you. And I want to make sure every day that people can take advantage of that. So that's who I am. Part of who I am.
Thank you for that. Agreed, right? This is a lot of access and information and so much of that technology can do for people, and it should be accessible for everybody. So at Sweetgreen, as the director of cybersecurity, what is it that you do? What does a typical day or month look like, or is there one?
Well, so I'm very lucky in that I joined Sweetgreen at a time when we're turning a corner in our technology platform. I'm cybersecurity employee number 1 at Sweetgreen, and my job is to build the policies, the procedures, and the teams that are going to be necessary to take us into our next phase of growth as a company. Today, we have 110 stores, none in New Hampshire, unfortunately, 110 stores across the country that are all working to build and working to provide an exemplary experience for our guests and making sure that we can connect people to real food. My role in that is to make sure that entire experience is trustworthy, and that we take all the information that our guests give to us, that our team members are accessing, and really doing everything that we can to protect that and to make sure that we can build on that trust moving forward. So yeah, that's what I'm working on.
Yeah, it's interesting thinking about food, and people might think, well, with credit cards, obviously, I think a lot of people understand the security with that. But with food, I'm thinking, for example, allergy information. With their, yeah.
You nailed it. Yeah. So, yeah, of course, we have the whole PCI. We want to make sure that we're protecting credit cards and data. But what we're seeing, and I'm sure if you are a consumer of food, and all of us are in some way, shape, form, or fashion, and you're a part of this modern economy where your phone is the way that it's the new menu, right? That's how you figure out exactly what you want to eat tonight. The digital experience and our personal lives have now become, they're one and the same, right? Uber Eats knows more about me and my taste than my partner does, which is that's a sad commentary, but but the truth is that all of these details about our lives are now sort of commonplace, and what happens with that information can be used against us if we're not careful, and it can be used in a way that we don't necessarily we haven't necessarily put together the bits and pieces yet of all the ways that people can be that we can infer information about each other based upon those data points. The fact that you, Diana, may order the same exact salad from Sweetgreen 10 times in a row might lead me to infer, if you never had, if you always are removing a certain ingredient, that you might be allergic to that ingredient. My job is to make sure that no one can infer that unless you want them to. Maybe you want Sweetgreen to come in and say, hey, I want you to know that I hate feta cheese because it makes me wildly ill. Well, that'd be great. If we know that, no one else besides the two of us in this transaction should know that. And that's my job, is to make sure that we get our arms around that.
Which, as a person, well, just as a person who cares about security and safety overall, I thank you. But also, as I personally do, I have anaphylaxis. So yeah, which is, for anybody who's listening that doesn't know, anaphylaxis is a deadly allergic reaction to certain foods, and a lot of children have it to peanuts. I actually have it to shellfish. So yeah. So.
Absolutely. That's what I think about is, of course, we have the things that we have to do every day. We have to make sure that people are logging on securely, and we're doing the OWASP top 10 and, the basic things. But then it goes beyond that of, hey, are we making sure that when someone places an order that A, that it's coming from them, and then B, that it is in fact what they wanted. One of the big things that we put on our menu boards is, hey, just so you know, this product is made in a kitchen that might have nuts or allergens that you might be exposed to. That's one way that we let people know that, hey, this is something that they should be aware of. We also ask our guests and our customers as they come in, do you have any allergies that we need to be aware of, so that way we can switch out our gloves, so that way we can go wash our hands, so that, again, we always wash your hands handling food. We can wash our hands again, that we can make sure that the bowl that we make for you is far, far away from anyone else's bowl that might even peripherally have had access to peanuts or whatever allergens you might be exposed to. So especially in a digital landscape, when we don't get to see you and have that interaction, us being able to very quickly pick out that this person needs to have special care and attention and take proactive steps in meat space to actually deal with that. Being able to protect that trust relationship, and you're trusting me to handle that information correctly, is paramount to my ability to grow this company, and make sure that no one gets sick.
Yeah.
we don't. I want you to come back.
Eat healthy food and come back alive.
You to come back.
I've been very lucky to see you present a few times at conferences, and actually do hands-on, very technical hands-on, and explain it in ways that everybody can kind of connect to. And I wonder if is that part of your what is that linked to your why? Is educating and helping people understand what's your cyber why, and what keeps you excited every morning and out there doing what you do, because you really are such a positive influence in the community.
Thank you. My cyber why. I know that I know a subject when I can teach it, which is why every time you've seen me, it's because I spent hours and hours at my house tinkering with something, or playing with something, or taking down my neighbor's Wi-Fi in one terrible incident. It was a learning experience, and now I know what not to do. That sort of, those aha moments, I love to share with other people. I love to share that. A lot of what we do in security, and I've said this in, not on camera, of course, but I've said this in other places, is that a lot of what we do is about exploiting assumptions and understanding what assumptions have been made. Everything that, especially on the technology front, it was built by a human, and that human made some assumptions about what they were going to do and how that technology should be used and who was going to even use that technology. It's so important, especially as we talk about security, is to get back to those underlying assumptions. And as we do that, we can then take steps to say, hey, if we pull this apart, what happens? If a different type of user interacts with this service, what happens? What makes me happy and what gets my cyber whys going is the idea of being able to say, look at all these assumptions, right, that were made, and getting back down to those very basic level brass tacks of, hey, we thought this was the way this was going to work. It didn't work that way. Here's why. That's always been something that's driven me, is figuring out who was in the room when a decision was made, and why did they think that was the decision to make. I'll give a specific example from my time in the military, actually. My very first job was at the post office. 4 years of college, ROTC, boot camp, all these things, and your taxpayer dollars sent me to the post office. That was my very first job. But I think it was one of the most informative jobs, especially as we talk about getting down to assumptions. I was running the post office at RAF Lakenheath in England, and that was at a time when one of the Star Wars movies was coming out. I think it was like episode 2 or something like that. And they were running a promotion, and they wanted to get the airmen and airwomen on base to really get excited about Star Wars. So they wrapped all of the mailboxes to look like R2-D2. All of them look like R2-D2. And it was really cute. And if you were into Star Wars, that's exactly what it's R2-D2 at the post office. But if you were an older person who maybe didn't have great eyesight, and maybe you were a former fighter pilot who was a retiree on base, it looked a lot like a garbage can. And so what did we find but garbage in the mailboxes, not 15 minutes after we unveiled the R2-D2s on base. We found a bunch of garbage in there. Why? Because we made an assumption that everyone, of course, knows what R2-D2 is. Everyone knows what Star Wars is. We made there was a fundamental flaw in our assumptions, and it was immediately exploited by a person with bad eyesight that happened to be walking along and needed to throw away their garbage, right? So that's ultimately what we do. And I love that moment of understanding of, aha, this was the assumption that was exploited. And here's how we can dig out of that. And actually, maybe there's a chance that we can redeem ourselves, or maybe we just need to, back off and do something else. So, that's my cyber why.
Yeah, no, that's great. Like thinking about it from the different view of not always just the threat model, but also thinking about, the assumptions that are made. And in that case, there was no malintent, I think, from the people. So they just generally thought R2 was a garbage can.
Well, and if you think about it, when you open a mailbox, the old school mailboxes, they open out, and R2-D2 is shiny and silver and short. And so it looks like a garbage can. If you kind of, if you didn't know anything about R2-D2, you'd be like, this is a new looking garbage can. Cool.
It's a very modern looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And then, especially in front of the post office where you get a lot of junk mail anyway, like, of course, the garbage can. Throw more junk mail in there.
All right. Well, so if anybody that's listening, and if they're hearing your story and your why, what would you like to tell them? How would you like them to either get involved in cybersecurity or something about cybersecurity that you'd like them to know?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I would say, honestly, is I go back to my previous answer of assumptions, right? It's a lot of times what we find is that the systems that we build were built in a way to serve a very specific community. And all the assumptions of that community are baked into that technology, that service, that product. When we think about, the pipeline, when we think about, retaining talent, when we think about, do I really belong in cybersecurity? The question that immediately goes in my head is, hey, when we start thinking about how we actually start tackling the security problem, it's not going to be the person that built the system or that person or that group, that community that that product was built for that's actually going to be able to exploit it or be defended. It'll be someone that's coming from someplace wildly different, that's coming from a completely different background, that has a completely different set of agenda topics that they're working with, that's going to be able to be looking at that system, at that service, at that product in a way that wasn't previously thought of. And it should give us a better capability, a better ability to actually defend the things that we need to defend moving forward, and at scale. A person that I look up to is the deputy CISO for the state of New York. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's Manhattan. It's Manhattan. Deputy CISO for the city of Manhattan. So I look up to her quite a bit, and she gives a very specific example of what happens in an industrial control network attack. A lot of us are like, oh man, oh, we're going to lose water, we're going to lose power, we're not going to be able to get on the internet, all these things. The thing that she always brings up in that particular example is, what about women, infant, and children? What about that program? Who's thinking about that? Because an ICS grid attack is going to affect that community harder than any other community. That's where we start. When we talk about defense, it's super easy to get wrapped up in the technology. It's super easy to get wrapped up in the code, but we don't ever think about who is the actual people, who are the people that are actually going to be impacted by it. That's where I think we need to get involved. And that's where I think as a community, we need to turn our aperture, not so much on the tech. The tech is so easy, frankly. It's easy to do the tech. It's super hard to be vulnerable and look at a vulnerable community and look at the impact of what happens if this attack really gets carried out. What happens if we don't defend the WIC program? Yeah. What happens if we don't defend these vulnerable communities? That is most certainly, I think, one of the things that I'd like to see, and I'd like to challenge the security community to be thinking about, is not so much the tech. Think about who's behind that tech and who's the consumer of that tech. The other thing I'd say, I get this question all the time, is how do I get involved in cybersecurity? Oh, that's a tough question, and it's not that we can't answer it. It's that it's such a broad question. It's a literal ocean of things that you can go do in security. And I promise you, no matter what you think is, oh, no one wants to secure that. Someone probably needs to secure that thing too, your fridge, your floorboards, whatever it is that you're thinking, oh, there's a security thing there. Everything. Go, if you want to get into security, pick something, pick one thing, because there's a literal ocean. Pick one place and start there, and then become a subject matter expert in securing that thing. And even if it's at your house, become a subject matter expert in that thing, and then pivot to the next thing, and then become a SME there, and then pivot to the next thing, become a SME there. And then get involved in your local networks, your local DEF CON groups, your local WISIS organizations, your local ISSA, ISACA. Get involved in your local groups, because chances are, as big as this community can sometimes feel, it'll be the people in your backyard that are going to be able to help you get that first job, get that first internship, whatever that ends up being, to help you maybe even pivot into something else. If you are in a place and you want to do something in security, it'll be someone local. If you shoot for something across the country and you don't know anybody there, we don't know you either. So I'd say start where you